Hello, my name is Daryl, and this is Dan, and welcome to the Wheels Manufacturing Instructional Video Series. Any noises you may hear in the background are where the word manufacturing comes from in our name. Today we're going to be showing you some tips and techniques as well as an introduction to our small bearing press, made specifically for front hubs. I'm going to pass this off to Dan here, and he can show you how it gets going.
Thanks, Daryl. What we have here is your typical front hub, your front wheel. Our small bearing press is ideally designed for smaller bearings, smaller ID bearings, which most front hubs carry. What we have here is a 609 bearing that I've already pulled out. Bearing size is typically embossed on the seal itself of the bearing. This one in particular is a 609 bearing. And if you have any questions as to what size of bearing you have, feel free to give us a call or jump on our website, wheelsmfg.com, and you can identify the bearings. We have all the information online for you. So what we've done is we've already punched out the bearings, and with an over axle or with a shouldered axle design of this particular hub, if the bearings are shot, you can just punch out the axle, and it'll drive the bearings out. So that's what we've done already. We've already punched out the bearings, and we're going to replace them with the new bearings. So put our new bearing in there. The skewer to our little press is the key to it all. This is what's going to press in your bearings, in addition to the appropriate open bore and over axle bearing adapters. Now, all of our bearing adapters are unique in the sense that they press simultaneously on both the inner and outer races of the bearing, and that's ideally how you want to press in a bearing. You don't want to load one race relative to the other. You'll just destroy a bearing. So what you got here is identify what bearing you have. Obviously we have a 609 here. Find your correct open bore adapter. All of our parts are laser etched with the appropriate bearing number on them. Slide that over to the skewer, standard 5mm skewer. Slide your bearing on, and then install everything into the bore of the hub. Now on the other side, find your other 609 bearing, open bore adapter, slide it on, and then what you can do is use your other over axle bearing adapters, slide those on to take up all the slack. You might have to use an extra one. I do have an extra one sitting here, just to make sure that you get all the threads on there. So find your nut to your skewer, attach that on there, spin it down a little ways, and just don't start throwing everything together. What you want to do is have the skewer open right here, okay? Make sure everything is snug and tight and square. You don't want to try and you don't want the bearing to go in an angle. You want it to go in straight and true. So start tightening the nut down just a little bit till you feel a little bit of pressure. You feel that bearing just start to go in. And what you've done already is you've greased. Just put a little tiny bit of grease in the open bore of the hub itself. So, and then go ahead and close the skewer down. What the skewer is doing is driving in the bearing. Back it off. Tighten the nut down a little bit more. A couple more turns, and again, tighten the skewer down. Driving the bearing in just a little bit more. Repeat the process until you've driven the bearing all the way home. And you'll feel it when it snugs up just properly. That's it right there. Don't want to hammer on it because you're just going to destroy a bearing that way as well. So that is the first bearing. We've just installed that. So take everything apart again. And if we can get the nut off of there. So all your parts, just set them off to the side here. So we have our first bearing in there. Pop out your other open bearing, your open bore adapter. Get your second bearing out. First, what you're going to need is your axle though. Throw that in there, making sure it's snug, properly seated against the other bearing. Find your new bearing, put that over the axle. Now this is where the open bore or the over axle bearing adapters come into play. Since you can't put an open bore onto the axle, It just won't work. This is an over axle, so that's going to go on that side, but you're going to need one on the other side as well. Put that under the skewer. Skewer into the axle itself, over the axle, and resting up against the bearing. Again, this is pressing simultaneously on both the inner and outer race of the bearing itself. Find your second over axle adapter right here. Put that over the axle. Find one of your, you can use one of your other over axles, just take up the space again. Find your skewer nut and follow the same process. Tighten the nut down, making sure again everything is square. You've already put a little bit of grease on the inside of your bearing bore there. Slowly tighten it down, drawing the bearing in. Again, everything should be squared up, not going in at an angle. Don't force it in there. Keep tightening the nut down until you feel that bearing go all the way in. And that should be it right there. Remove the nut. If you can get it off of there. And then remove all your over axle adapters. Take the skewer out. All right, so now you've installed your bearings on both sides. Axle is rolling free, rolling smooth. Once you've checked all that, go ahead and reinstall your axle caps. This particular hub has them on both sides. Make sure they're tightened down. Reinstall your skewer and reinstall the wheel back into your frame. That should be just about it for the small bearing press, Daryl.
Thanks for all the information there, Dan. You know, I'd like to state there is a lot of information out there about these presses, and you know, if you have any further questions, please feel free to check out our website at wheelsmfg.com, or you know, just give us a call and we'll definitely help you out with any further advice or install techniques. And on that note, thanks for watching the Wheels instructional video series, and have a great day.